Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be joining Wellbeing360 Thrive 2021. This is a unique platform promoting wellness in the industry through creation of these events. My name is Cheryl Thornton, and I will be your moderator for the next hour. This afternoon, we have a stellar lineup of 4 incredible women to talk to us about Femme, empowering women with knowledge. Our first panelist is Hasna Mutawa, an Emirati entrepreneur who is the founder and CEO of Mina, a wellbeing platform focusing on mental health, healthy lifestyle, and holistic medicine. Mina began in 2017 and today promotes the UAE community with more than 84 licensed counsellors in mental health and wellbeing. They offer an ecosystem to secure mental and wellbeing services as the only UAE approved online mental health and wellbeing platform. Welcome, Hasna. Our second panelist is Jasmine Collin, and she is a pregnancy, birth mindset, and parenting coach and expert. Jasmine is a mother of 2 and is trained in hypnobirthing, hypnotherapy, NLP, theta healing, and doulaing. As an experienced hypnotherapist, Jasmine has a demonstrated history of working in the health, wellness, and fitness industry. Jasmine is also co-founder of Love Parenting UAE, and her mission is to help parents have empowering birth and parenting experiences and ensure babies are born in love rather than fear. Great to have you here, Jasmine. Mahima Bakshi joins us from India as our third panelist. Mahima is a women and child wellness coach and an advocate of women's empowerment in India. Mahima began her career as a fashion model and used this platform to promote women's empowerment. Mahima is now a woman and child wellness coach in India, and she is also the founder and owner of Birthing Naturally Queen, an online pageant to promote awareness on maternal mental health from pregnancy to motherhood. Mahima has authored the book Birthing Naturally to promote awareness on preparing pregnant women for natural deliveries and encouraging mothers to take care of their well-being in pregnancy and post-delivery. Great to have you with us from India, Mahima. And our final panelist is Anna Wallenten, a peak performance expert from Sweden. Since 2008, Anna has made it her mission to understand what makes people come alive and is driven to become a leading expert in her field as a master in the art of human potential. Anna's mission is to evoke untapped potential in her clients so that they can raise their standards and achieve mind-blowing breakthrough goals and make massive changes in their companies and personal lives. Through Anna's extensive coaching experience, education, and belief in human potential, she assists many clients reaching heights they could never reach on their own. Fantastic to have you here today, Anna. So ladies, thank you all for joining us today. And let's jump straight in to our topic, Femme, empowering women with knowledge. Hasna, my first question is for you as the CEO and founder of a highly successful and unique online wellbeing and counselling business. How do we as a community lift up women and support their professional and personal pursuits?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Good afternoon to all the panelists. Thank you for having me. And honestly, I'll tell you my personal opinion here. I think we should stop judging women. I'm Emirati, I'm coming from a tough Asian culture, and we have a very tough standard for ladies. We have to be perfect in everything. And we should stop being sexist and just focus on being human. You know, in our culture, we don't ask men if they did their job right or if they contribute to the family. Or everything is allowed for men, and when it comes to women, we have to be perfect. We have to show people that we are following this tough standard. I think personally, we should stop judging each other and just focus on being us, because good for you might not be good for me or good for her, right? So setting the standard, I think, is what's killing every lady to keep up with that standard. From my side, just be a human.
Yeah, so I would agree with many of the points that you've covered there. And I just want to pick up on the stop judging. Quite often, women are more judgmental and critical of each other than men are. So I think you're spot on there when you're saying we just need to support each other and stop being critical and help each other to, you know, achieve our goals. And, you know, when we do fall down, rather than think, you know, I'm better than her, how can we help her? So I really understand where you're coming from there. So if we think about, you know, we've got quite a young female role model in Greta Thunberg, the environmental activist. And she said, you are never too small to make a difference. So Mahima, you have worn multiple hats in your short but highly successful career. How have you promoted women's empowerment, and why has this been important for you?
So thank you, Cheryl, for the question, and I would like to thank everybody for joining me along with all the other co-panelists and giving me this opportunity to speak here. So when I started modeling in India, and I participated in a couple of beauty pageants, so every time when a model would win a crown, the judges would ask her that, what would you do after winning the pageant? So that's when I always had this thing in my heart that I would want to bring a change in the female structure in our community, in our society, because women need to be pushed to the next level so that we can bring a change for women in our society. And that's what I always wanted to do. And I think that women empowerment begins first by making a woman aware of taking care of her health. So I think if she feels empowered to take care of her health, it gives her more power to do bigger things in her life. So that's why I always wanted to do something for women's health. And I feel that the most important phase in a woman's life is when she gets pregnant, when she undergoes childbirth and post-delivery, when she's fighting those postpartum blues and trying to get back to her pre-pregnancy state. So I always wanted to, do more and more for women in pregnancy and post-delivery. And especially when COVID started, I realized that the incidence of postpartum depression was going high, not just in India, but all over the world. And that's why I started this online beauty pageant, which is dedicated to pregnant and new moms, called Birthing Naturally Queen. And my tagline is spreading smiles from pregnancy to motherhood. So it's to make women fall in love with all the changes happening in their body during pregnancy and post-delivery, so that they can celebrate the stretch marks, they can celebrate the weight gain, and they can celebrate all the emotional changes happening in their body by being a part of a beauty pageant.
Yeah, Mahima, that's just, all these things that you're talking about are just so vital and so important for women. And we seem to put the most pressure on ourselves, don't we? You've touched upon, looking after your own health, and often we do neglect it. And if we look at third world countries, it's usually the woman or the mothers whose health is neglected. So healthcare is such a vital and basic necessity for women. And then the rest of their life comes from there. I think you've touched upon a topic that's rather sensitive around postpartum depression. And I think one of the big things as women is that we put that pressure on ourselves to bounce back as quickly as possible after having a child and, returning to the birthdays. And we just need to take an approach to know that life has changed and it's okay. It's okay to have a bit of extra weight. It's okay to say that you need help. You're absolutely right. So I just love your tagline, spreading smiles from pregnancy to motherhood. Really beautiful. So if we start to move into the corporate space now a little bit, I was reading an article by Deloitte, and they were talking about global representation of women on corporate boards. And whilst it is increasing globally, the number of women actually leading boards still remains to be quite low. So overall, if we look at a global figure that Deloitte has surveyed, we're looking about 12% of the world's board seats are occupied by women, but only 4% are actually leading the board who are women. So Mahima, can I just come back to you again and pick up on your point? You're talking about birth and pregnancy, but then what happens after, particularly for the working mother? So does this figure of women in board positions or at senior leadership roles surprise you? And how can society in general promote the economic inclusion of women across workforces, across all levels, and particularly at the executive and board levels?
So I think that's a very important point, Cheryl. And we, as women, all of us need to kind of raise our voices to bring that change at, the senior leadership level in the corporate world. So I feel there are 2 points to it that we can touch base to bring a change in the society. The first is by ensuring that they get good maternity benefits. So I have seen that there are lots of places and lots of countries in the world who still don't offer a maternity leave of 6 months. WHO says you need to do exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months, but if a mother has to get back to her work after 3 months, how is she going to cope up with the exclusive breastfeeds? So that way, I feel very glad that the new Maternity Act in India allows a 6 months of maternity leave, paid maternity leave to mothers. And I feel that this is a change that all the countries in the world need to do so that the mother can enjoy breastfeeding her baby for the first 6 months. She should not be worried about getting back to work. She should not be worried about what will happen during those 6 months in my absence. Is anybody else going to take over my position? When I join back work, is my boss going to judge me because I have a new baby to take care of? So I think that's where we need to sensitize the men. So if bosses could allow women to do work from home after the 6 months of maternity leave gets over, so that mothers can maintain that balance by spending more time with the baby and utilizing the platform of work from home option, which now in COVID times we all have been working from home. So it's not that work from home cannot be done. So if bosses could be sensitized a little more towards allowing the women to do that when they have to get back to work after the maternity leave ends, that would help in bringing up women more in the senior leadership roles, so that if they don't have to worry about their jobs when they have to go through pregnancy or during the post-delivery phase. So I think men need to be sensitized for that, to respect women, to appreciate women, and to allow women to get into senior roles at the same time manage a role of taking care of the family and the babies.
Yeah, that's so true, Mahima. Men need to be sensitised. And I think it's anyone in a position of authority or power needs to be sensitised to the circumstances. So then if I could just take that thought, and Anna, if I could bring you now into the conversation. As a peak performance coach, how have you influenced your clients, particularly high-profile men, to support inclusivity of women in the workplace?
So thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be joining today. And thank you so much for this well-organized event that we get to now do online. I've been part of it when it was live, but this also is an incredible opportunity to spread the message that's important. I think your question is about, so when I work with highly successful individuals in different kind of platforms. Some people run their own businesses and some people are very senior in organizations. And I think that how I work with my clients, I mean, I'm very, I would call it obsessed slightly with the whole masculine and feminine energy. And I'm really, really fascinated by how masculinity and femininity shows up in all of us. And so when I work with my senior leaders, I have a way of being with them, and I think it's part of who I am as a person, and how my, you know, my platform when I work with my clients, and what I allow them to feel when they're in the space with me, where I kind of pull on both the masculine and feminine parts, even with my senior men leaders, if you know what I mean, to make them highly aware of how to balance both parts as leaders. So I'm not really, I mean, that's how I do with getting them into the frame of mind that we are the equality level. Because I obviously come from Sweden, where men and women are completely equal, to the point where it's almost gone a little bit on the other side, which is interesting. But so I come from that background, from my culture, and I find that when we don't put a big emphasis on it being something different between man and woman, but just kind of trying to bring out both flavors in leaders, regardless of their gender, I think that helps to balance out the stigma that's there, if that makes sense. Not sure if I answered your questions correctly there, but that's how I work with them anyway. I pull on those strings, if you know what I mean.
And there's some really good points in. You certainly did answer the question, but I think you didn't answer it in the traditional way, and I think that's really important. I think it's fantastic. You've got a healthy obsession, so keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I just want to pick up on the point you talked about, mindsets, and I think this is what it's all about. Mahima says, you know, we need to sensitize, particularly men, and often men are in those positions of authority or making decisions that impact on women. So having the mindset around what is it like to be a working mother, or what is it like to be pregnant, or to have an understanding of that is really important, and how we can bring women and women's needs into the workplace as well, so they can continue to work, but also be a mother or be whatever they want to be. And I think that's fantastic. So I'm just going to stretch your point a little bit further, Anne, and I'm going to ask Hasna. Hasna, Mahima talked about, you know, in India, they've now got the 6-month paid maternity leave. Now, a lot of that does depend on the governments and the political ruling parties to make legislation to support women. And from there, then companies put in place policies and so forth. So what do you see as the role of governments and then organisations or companies to promote female inclusion and representation at all levels? And perhaps you can draw upon some examples on how your company promotes inclusion.
You're talking about this region, or you're talking about it globally? Yeah.
I'm happy for you to touch on regionally and globally, Hasna.
Sorry?
Happy for you to touch upon the question regionally and globally.
Yeah, sure. So when we talk about women inclusion in the corporate world or economically, recently it was like, it is our days, if we can say that, because everyone is having that attention to promote women and including them in the economical world. But yet we can see some limitations when it comes to, you know, senior positions or access to market, or, you know, certain sectors like oil and gas or stock markets or whatever. So I think the inclusion should not focus on like having ladies just to tick the box. We should get more than access to market or just a blessing. We need to have an ecosystem where we can develop ourselves first and like contribute to the market and then see the difference. I'm sure that there are many companies led by males, but the main contribution is coming from females. So if we're here trying to make a point, then we have to be fair to ourselves. But I think, again, I'm repeating myself, because for me, I don't think that we should say female inclusion should be there. It is there, but we need to like enhance it. We need to bring it to life to show people that yes, it's there and we can do these kind of jobs, we can contribute here and we can contribute there. I don't know if I answered the question correctly or this is what you're looking for, but this is my opinion.
That's a really great opinion to have, Hasna. Thank you. I think what you've said is absolutely correct. Women are there, but how do we support them more? How do we give them the opportunities, the platforms to enhance what they're able to do? Where are the development opportunities and so forth? I think what you said is so true, Hasna. You know, the tick in the box. You know, we often see companies having targets, you know, making sure there's enough women in the workforce, or ensuring they've got at least 1 or 2 female leadership, females at the leadership level. That's all fantastic. But is that part of a wider ecosystem that you talked about, Hasna? Is this sustainable, or are we just doing piecemeal things because we're doing that tick in the box? And I think you're absolutely right there. We need to be creating an infrastructure that is sustainable and is ongoing, supporting women. Now, ladies, I'm just going to throw to the audience. We've actually got some great questions coming through. And the first question: how do you find meaning in your life through the pursuit of things you enjoy in order to regain a sense of yourself? Which of our panelists would like to take that question? How do you find meaning in your life through the pursuit of things you enjoy in order to regain a sense of yourself? Mahima, could I maybe ask you, you've done so many things in your career.
Yeah, so I think, you know, finding that peace with your inner self, where continuously, when you have so many goals, so many dreams, you're in the rat race, you're running towards achieving your goals. Sometimes you need to slow down. Sometimes you need to just sit down with yourself and ask yourself, you know, where have you really reached? What have you done in the past? How hard have you worked? And how do you, find happiness in the other things around you in your life? So practicing mindfulness and your me time, where you sit down to realize, that self-realization, to realize what you've done, what you're doing for yourself, what you're doing for others, and celebrating it is very important, because I think every day should be a celebration. And the more celebrations we do, we tend to stimulate happy hormones in our body. So when you start celebrating little achievements that you start making in your life, it just helps you to feel more good about yourself and to be able to, enjoy life the way it takes you forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's celebrating those small successes, those small wins as you go. And I think that's really important. So on that topic of celebrating, let's talk now about shared experiences. And Jasmine, I'm going to bring you in on this next question. Given your expertise really cuts to the core of the ability and opportunity for women to continue to work after giving birth, how does your mission to help parents to have empowering birthing and parenting experiences fit with the whole concept of work-family balance?
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me. It's lovely to be here with all of you. And I think some of the points that have already been made are just, so in line with everything that I believe in as well. So the work I do with couples as they're preparing to be parents really goes deep into a lot of the things that have already been mentioned, the masculine and the feminine energies. I think it's particularly hard for pregnant women to, the challenges that pregnant women have, as their body goes through all of those physical changes and hormonal changes, and the emotional transition that they're going through during that process. It's like Mahima was saying, it's such an important time for them as a woman, as a couple, and the work that I do with them is about sort of helping them go through that journey together as a team. There's we talk about this journey about becoming a mother as the matriessence. It's a little bit like adolescence. but you're supposed to be happy all the way through it, and yet you've got your body changing in all these different ways, and your emotions are all over the place. So we accept this as a part of life of adolescence, but we don't really recognize this as something that mothers go through as well. So I think it's really important to recognize that and help them through that, because they're also under this pressure, aren't they, to continue to work full time and not let it be a weakness. And, you know, all those masculine energies are dialed up to the max. And yet when it comes to birthing and mothering, we need those masculine energies to come down a little bit, and for the feminine letting go, surrendering, flow energies to come up. So the work I do with couples is to balance those energies out and to really help them to have a better birth experience, and to go into parenthood feeling really centered, connected with themselves, connected with the baby, because obviously there's a baby experiencing everything that the mother is experiencing as well. So yeah, I'm not sure if that answered your question, but yeah, I'm really passionate about helping them come through the other side feeling really together as a team. I think somebody's mentioned it in the questions already, but dads can really suffer as well with postpartum depression. And I don't think we do enough to support dads in the birthing environment. They're thrown into the delivery room and told that they have to support their wives, and they have no training and no I just think that's one of the toughest things we can do to new dads. So yeah, I'm really passionate about supporting couples through that whole journey.
The whole journey. And you're absolutely right there, Jasmine. It's not just about the mother, it is about both parents, the dad as well. Yeah. And it resonated with me when you talked about it's a journey, but you're doing this with a team, because often women do feel they're on their own, or dad or the partner doesn't understand, or we get all these emotions, and whether that's hormones and physical changes in our bodies. But I think you're right. It's really about supporting both, because at the end of the day, both mum and dad need to be on this journey together as one team, supporting each other. And interestingly, that takes me to the next question that I'd like to continue with you, Jasmine. Based on your own personal experience, what advice would you give to working mums and dads, especially first-time parents who are trying to juggle work, family, and everything else that's going on around?
What would the advice I'd give them after the baby or before? Because it would be different. Both. Yeah. Before, I would say, it's really important definitely for the mother to take space for, her time and space for herself, to be connected, the mindfulness practices, etc. I would tell them that they, need to do some education around birth, because a lot of couples will just rock up at the hospital on the day, and unfortunately, if you don't really know what you want, you end up getting what you're given at the hospital, which might not always be in your best interest. It might not be what you wanted. I speak to lots of couples after the birth where they might come to my classes for the second time for the second birth, and they were like, we just didn't know that what was going to happen. So definitely some education, definitely some support. I like the bit somebody mentioned before about keeping it kind of real and not comparing yourself to other people. Instagram is full of women in full blossom of pregnancy looking amazing, and that's great, but behind the scenes, that it's not always that pretty. It's messy and it's human, and to get ready for that journey and be honest with yourselves and each other, and keep communicating all the way through that journey. Because what happens when the baby arrives is, mum is completely, obviously directed her attention and love all towards the baby, and there's a huge transition going on, and dads can often feel left out. And so in my classes, we do a little section on baby proofing your marriage. So we talk about what it's really going to be like afterwards, because the people, they don't have any idea really. So being realistic and being ready and keeping the lines of communication open at all times, self-care, and trying to do all of that in a society that doesn't really support that is very challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your points around, you know, make sure dad is included as well. That's really important, because you do hear fathers feel quite detached, you know, particularly after the baby is born, and obviously the mother is bonding particularly with the baby. So that's really important. It kind of goes back to your earlier point, Jasmine, about it's a journey, but it's a team. And I think communication is obviously really important during these times. Anna, if I come to you now, how important is strong habits and rituals in creating the balance between work and family life? So Jasmine's touched upon, you know, pre-birth and kind of immediately post-birth. But when things start to settle down and they've returned home with the baby, how do you create that balance between work and family life? And is it possible, if we specifically take a female or women focus, is it possible for us to have it all? Continue the career.
Right. Thank you so much for the question. Now, I totally believe that we can have it all. And I have a lot of proof of people that have had it all and never believed it was possible. So I think we have no limits to our potential, massively not. But you're speaking also to a woman who actually doesn't have children. And I am probably the one on the panel that's maybe not so directed towards the child, sort of the balance between work and childbirth. But what I will say is I have had women absolutely that I've worked with who have, and I want to just highlight also what Jasmine was saying before, because I have been working with very highly driven corporate women that, you know, have become pregnant and you know, had a baby, and then who do I become now? And I think it's very sort of like, I don't know because I don't have children, but what I've seen, and obviously my clients, is it's kind of like, okay, this is how I think it's going to be, and then, oh my God, this is how it is, you know, in real life. And I just want to come back very quickly and say something that Hasna was saying as well, that, you know, in Sweden we have maternity and paternity leave, and you know, even the woman can get up to a year and a half off with their child, and then the man has 6 months. And actually, the decrease in divorce rates in Sweden became very apparent after this became reality, because all of a sudden there's a better understanding. And I think the habits in general, if you're asking me about habits, another one of my obsessions is habits, because I truly believe habits of the mind and habits of who you're showing up as and what you do in your life is the creator of your life, period. And I think from what I know for sure about raising children, it's you know, habits and structure is insanely important for there to be some sort of like feeling safety and feeling like you know, I know what's happening. I have my life and I know what's going on. And I think as a mother, but as anybody in terms of habits, the most important habit I truly believe is the morning habit. And that's because when you wake up in the morning, your brain is going from that sleeping state of delta and theta brainwave, right, into awakened states. And you're so receptive to the world when you wake up. And I think creating a very strong ritual and habits in the morning, I think is going to help you with, you know, obviously being a newly mom, but anybody will help anybody to set up your day. Now, obviously, if you have a child and you've got a newborn, obviously it's hard to know, because one day this might be happening and the next day this is happening. So I think it's having structured habits, but also having, of course, space for, oh, wow, now this just happened and now we have to deal with this. But in general, I think habits is crucial for anybody to be able to have a successful career, successful marriage, successful life, anything. I think habit is number one.
Absolutely, and I would agree with that, Anna. We're getting some really good questions coming through, and dads seem to be the focus quite a bit. So the next question is, dads and partners can suffer from anxiety and depression after the birth of a child. Does society recognise this phenomena, and what help can be given to the dads? Maybe Jasmine or Mahima, would you like to take that question?
I'll just say something about that. I would say absolutely, it's definitely something that is that is happening. It's not that well recognized. And again, there's probably a lot of stigma around it for dads to be having that or expressing that. Obviously, if somebody is out there listening to this and they're struggling with it, I would suggest talking to somebody straight away. There's some amazing support groups and you know, amazing psychologists now everywhere in the world you can access online, but there's definitely some amazing ones in Dubai. And for me, it would go back to how can we prevent it rather than, you know, what can we do about it? So going back to the education and the support and the communication that I mentioned earlier, and just, you know, being that I was going to say, you know, when Anna was talking, there's a concept called the good enough mother. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's a theory. And I would say that that goes for dads as well. You know, good enough fathers are good enough as well. So Mahima, would you like to add anything to that?
So yes, Jasmine rightly said it. We need to do more for that because yes, the society probably is not doing enough for the dads. And so when I authored my first book, which is I would like to show, Birthing Naturally, it specifically has chapters for expecting fathers. Because I think when we talk about pregnancy or when we talk about birth preparation, you know, the entire attention goes to the mother. And fathers are expected to help them, but a lot of times, you know, they feel that okay, the entire attention is going to my wife, the entire attention is going to the baby. What about me? I'm expected to handle her mood swings, I'm expected to handle all the changes she's going through, I'm expected to handle her and the baby, but what about me? So I think if we could have a lot of support groups for fathers, for expecting dads and for new dads, and also, you know, writing books or doing sessions which is dedicated for fathers where they feel that we understand what they go through. So yes, you know, it's probably not that easy for them to cope up with those 9 months, but at the same time, I think it's just the 9 months that are being talked about. You know, everything doesn't change easily after the delivery. The mood swings still continue. The husband still have to kind of, you know, support the wife's emotional changes even after delivery. Breastfeeds are not easy. You know, the mother is still going through different challenges of breastfeeding. So she wants her husband to understand that, you know, look, I'm trying to get through this phase. All I need from you is emotional support. So I think a lot of attention needs to be given to the post-delivery part, that what to expect after the baby comes, how the life changes. And like Jasmine was mentioning, I loved what she just said, baby-proofing the marriage. So I think a lot of such things to emphasize upon how life changes after the baby comes into your life and how fathers can, you know, probably evolve as a man in the marriage, and how at the same time women also need to be more empathic towards the partner. So if the partner has been supportive for the 9 months during pregnancy, after delivery, I think even women need to be more, you know, I would say a little more caring and compassionate towards the male partner as well, because they also are babies. End of the day, even men are babies. They want to be treated like babies as well. So I think that needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mahima and Jasmine, for answering that question.
If I may, I want, speaking of the father and the attention the father needs, I want to ask Jasmine, how do you deal with parents who's having the second baby? I know, like when we are first-time parents, we're energetic, we're so excited, but then when the second baby comes, the energy fade away, and then you end up with like you're pregnant and you have to deal with the baby, and then also you have to take care of your partner should take care of you. I don't know, this conflict and dilemma, it's a puzzle for everyone. I don't know how you deal with cases. What sorts of supports? Can you give us some tricks on how to manage the situation?
What a great question. I'm sure there's a lot of people needing the answer to that. So yeah, once the second, I mean, it's, you know, once the second baby comes, when you're pregnant with a toddler, you know, you wonder that the first pregnancy was that difficult in the first place, because at least you could have a nap, but with the toddler running around, that becomes even more challenging, and you still have to go through all the physical changes. I think the jump to motherhood isn't as big, because obviously you've already done it once. But yeah, the dynamics in the family change even more. You've got, you know, lots of people needing your attention. I guess, yeah, I mean, from my own personal experience, it's about making sure that you both get a chance, both parents get a chance to fill their own cups up first and go back to self-care, because no one's in any state to help anyone else if they're not okay in themselves. And then once you've done that, my next speaking from personal experience is to, you know, make sure you make time for the marriage, make sure you make time to communicate each day, even like 5-10 minutes, check in, how are you? You know, once a week, maybe some sort of special occasion where you get together and connect in the way that you used to, and just keep talking. When it comes to parenting, I always then talk about filling up your child's cup first as well. So if you've got work to do, it's no point like trying to do your work when your kids need you. So I'd always try and fill my kids' cups up first, which doesn't always have to be quantity time, but it has to be quality time. So whether that's something called child-led play, which is where for 15 minutes your kid gets to call the shots, and you're the one that has to be the, you know, the person that gets ordered around, to give them a sense of control and power. That means that they're less likely to take that back in other areas, feeding, for example, or sleeping. And with older kids, we have things like yes days, or, you know, a morning where we just say yes to everything, so that they feel connected and filled up with you. And then you can go off and do your other, you know, work bits and other responsibilities that you have in your life. So I'm not sure if that helps, but that's what I do.
I think that's some great tips there, Jasmine.
I want to add something to that. So, you know, yes, of course, when you manage 2 kids, then it becomes taking care of the sibling so that the sibling doesn't get jealous of the other one. And at the same time, the husband and wife trying to find time for each other. And I feel honestly that it's something which is definitely not easy. So I think the best thing to do is spend the weekends where, as parents, you try to bond with both the babies, managing a balance between the 2 kids, and one weekend in a month, you know, just get someone to babysit the kids and just let the couple go out and get some us time. So we talk about me time, a couple needs the us time. So I think one weekend in a month, the couple should go for a staycation, just spend the weekend somewhere and get someone to babysit the kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those points are really important that Mahima and Jasmine has made. You know, I always believe, I mean, I'm a working mother, and for me, I think just go for it, do as much as you can. And I have a fantastic supportive husband. But I think going back to what Jasmine and Mahima are talking about, you need to have structure. You need to have like your own family rituals or habits that you do within your, you know, the 4 walls of your home. And for my husband and myself, we have date night. So as Mahima says, get the babysitter in, and that's our nice night. And I get to put on the 5-inch high heels and out we go for a romantic night out. It's also just doing the little things at home, like breakfast in bed, or, you know, for your spouse. And, you know, hubby does it for me and I do it for him. You know, it's all those nice little things that, you know, just make the marriage. With children, it's really important, as Jasmine was saying, you have time with the children and you break it down. You break it down into when it's parent-led or child-led. And these are really important things. And I think that's what builds your family and makes your family unique as well, Hasna. I think that's really important. So great questions, great advice coming through. I have another question. Somebody is asking, what about menopause? So we're talking about birth and birthing. What about menopause? Isn't that interesting? Because obviously, you know, we've seen a lot of steps taken to support women who are pregnant and then post-pregnancy. But what about at the other end of the spectrum, when women are coming into premenopause and then full-on menopause? Is there really a lot of support out there for menopause, and is it widely talked about? Maybe Hasna or Anna, if you'd like to take this question.
I think I lack the clinical knowledge here.
I'm definitely not one specialist on the terms or on the field of menopause at all. All I know from experiences from clients is that it's very diverse, and I don't know if any of you, have what kind of experiences you have, but it's very diverse of how it even shows up. I do think that absolutely menopause can be, for some women, completely overwhelming, and for some women, maybe not even something that they notice even. And I know that my mother, she didn't notice when she was in menopause hardly. And so I think it's very, I do think, and I'm not undermining menopause at all whatsoever, but I also do think that it's also, it can be, I think if we experience something, we're starting to experience, physical effects of menopause, it's very important also in terms of what we say to ourselves and our mindset in that moment, because sometimes we feel things, I mean, even with physical pain, and then we can create a massive scenario and the pain becomes an enhanced experience and it gets out of control. So I do think, even though I don't have that much of experience with menopause, I have a lot of experience with other symptoms that also is correlating with mind and body. And I think it's super important to work on this when you're going through that, so that you can be more not in control, but more sort of in balance, I think. But when it comes to menopause, maybe the other ladies have more experience with women in menopause. I don't have as much, so.
Sure. I think you've covered some key points there. Mahima, would you like to add anything?
Yes, so I have worked with a lot of perimenopausal women in terms of the well-being. So the physical changes that happens, there's, the metabolism slows down. A lot of women tend to put on a lot of weight when the menopause hits the body. And a lot of women go through some calcium deficiencies that affects the bone health. So emphasizing a lot on physical fitness for women entering menopause. So I think pre-menopause is the best time to start emphasizing on working out, doing regular fitness, and yoga plays a wonderful role in maintaining that balance between the mind and the body. So if women can do some, pre-menopausal yoga workouts and continue to find that me time for themselves, so that, they continue recognizing what they've done in their life, what they've achieved, how they've found that comfort space with their family, with their kids, so that they continue having those happy hormones in the body. So I think that constant motivation to not stop living life just because you've hit your menopause, life doesn't have to stop in your menopause. You can, in fact, rediscover yourself once again. So, like a lot of women have been saying that 60s is the new 40s. So even if you're in your 60s, you can still feel like you're in 40s. So that physical fitness, your mental health, your diet, your relationship with your family, with your kids, I think all that makes a huge difference to help women right when she enters the premenopausal stage, helping her during the menopause and the post-menopause phase, so that she comes out stronger physically, emotionally, mentally, and the relationship with the family also comes out stronger.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mahima and Anna. If I could just add there, you're right. The panel, none of the panel members are experts around menopause, but it very much can be contextualized into another phase of a woman's life. And it's equally important to reach out and get support. You're not in it alone. We talked earlier, Jasmine talked about the journey, and it's a team, and communicate and get access to who you need or what you need to get access to. And it's really interesting, but we're starting to see globally companies now making policies, HR policies around their workforce and looking at the particular group of women who are going through menopause and what support they can give them. In some respects, it's still a bit taboo, it's not talked about, but we need to now start these conversations, equally important as it is to being pregnant and so forth. So as we just continue on, it's really interesting because Oprah Winfrey has been in the news a lot lately for that interview, but we won't talk about that. If we look at Oprah, she's really a very highly successful media mogul and philanthropist. And, Oprah does a lot of charity work and get involved in a lot of things, particularly around women causes. And Oprah has said, passion is energy. Feel the power that comes from focusing on what excites you. So Anna, how do you identify your passions in pursuit of a career that also brings balance to your life?
Well, thank you so much for this question, because passion is one of my favorite things in life. I think if you bring passion into everything that you do, and I'm talking about physical training, your relationship with your partner, with your body, with your work, with everything, I think that you elevate your life. And just like Oprah says, and I truly believe that as well, we're all energy. You know, all of us are energy. We're constantly moving. And passion lies in the high vibrational energies, where we're feeling in flow, where we're feeling not in the low vibrational energies that's like regret and resentment and all those kind of energies. So first of all, what I would say is, what makes you come alive? When my clients come to me, they say, oh, Anne, I want to find my passion. And sometimes that becomes something that almost becomes like a burden for people. I don't know what my passion is, and therefore I don't know if I have meaning with my life. And I always say, you know, if you want to know what the next chapter of your life involves, there's two ways to go about it. Either you have sort of like an inkling of what you want to do and what makes you come alive, or you can become the person that is the ultimate version of you. Because when you are in a high vibrational state, i.e. you're accessing, you know, you're living from energy and love and flow and gratitude and all these kind of vibrational energies, it's much easier to recognize what makes you come alive than when you're constantly looking for what's going wrong, what's negative, and what's bad. So coming back to the question, if you want to identify what your passion is, I would say sit down for a moment and think about what actually gives me energy. And how can I ask myself that question when I'm up here and not when I'm down here?
Yeah, some great advice there, Anna. Thank you. So, Hasna, let's come back to you. You are a highly successful Emirati entrepreneur as the founder and CEO of Mind Mina. What advice would you give to other women and also men to find their passion and balance in life?
The golden advice to find your passion is keep asking yourself why you want to do this. What's your purpose? I think if you think about your purpose of doing everything, even your daily routine, I want to lose weight because I want to be a useful person. I want to eat healthy because I want to be a role model to my kids. If you ask yourself these questions, if you ask yourself what's the purpose behind everything, you will find your passion, because there is a strong relationship between your purpose and what you like to do. Because we as a human, we always like to feel good and promote to the world something good, and not being result oriented, but at least to see tangible achievements of our work. So my advice is just ask yourself why you're doing this.
Powerful question, Hasna. Ask why. Thank you. So let's now move back into the workplace. Change of direction. We often hear that males, you know, when they're assertive, they're leaders. But when women are assertive, they can be viewed as bossy or maybe even aggressive. Now, we have started to break the glass ceiling in this regard, but we've still got some work to do. And it's not just women who have the work to do. Our male counterparts are there as well. So Mahima, if I come back to you, let's bring into the equation a woman's personal value. How can women use negotiation and persuasion techniques in the workplace for career advancement?
That's a very good question and a tough one, I would say. So I think when we talk about workplace and women, they tend to have different personalities at work. And I think women would probably have two sides, and you know, the side of an introvert and the side of an extrovert, and that perfect combination can help women to get a lot of work done. So they are emotional, so they know how to empathize with people when there's any emotional issue going on. So they can, just kind of be empathetic and at the same time get the work done. While they are very, very hardworking because they play multiple roles in their lives. So at the same time, when it is about getting a tough task done, they would understand how hard work has to be done, and they would play very good mentors for the juniors to learn from them. They give good examples, set good roles for the juniors to learn from them, and at the same time handle a team and get the work done and move ahead in a direction that rises the business and brings the business forward.
Excellent. Thanks, Mahima. And Jasmine, if I could just come to you. So we're still in the workplace. How can women in particular, but also dads, achieve balance in the work-family relationship? And what do you see as the role of each partner to support the other's career?
Wow, that's a good question too. So the first part, I'm lucky that I have my own business, so I'm not kind of back out in the workplace. So I have different challenges from a personal perspective, and boundaries is really important for me around my work life balance. I guess appreciating each other's work life is really, really important, and just having that, and having an agreement to begin with whose work might take priority at different times during that journey that we talked about. That's one of the things we look at in my classes is, how is the work life, how is each parent's work life going to fit in with a new baby, with another child? And I think having that conversation before it gets messy, and having clear expectations of because I think that sometimes somebody's work might have to take priority over the other ones while you're growing your family. So I think it's just important to have that communicated and set, and then to be reviewed, later on when there's another child, or when that child's grown up, maybe the mum can come back in a little bit more. So I think it's about, a good expectations and communication again around that.
Sure, and it's very much about team, isn't it, Jasmine, that you talked about earlier. We've just got another question that's just come through, and it leads on from your point, Jasmine. How do you overcome guilt in wanting to pursue a career and balance family life?
How do you overcome it?
Yeah. Or anybody wants to answer this question. How would you overcome if you're feeling guilty, about having a career, but balancing that with your family life? Or your
I think that's the biggest thing I hear from people I work with and friends and family, is they never feel like they're doing one job properly. When they're a parent, they feel like they're not doing their job properly. When they're at work, they don't feel like they're being a parent properly. And that is just an awful situation to be in at all times, because you can never win. And you've constantly got the guilt. So I would go back to expectations again. If there's guilt there, then there's a feeling of, not doing something properly. So where is the expectation that is making that gap between where you feel like you should be and where you're not? And again, I think that goes back right to the beginning of the conversation about society's expectations. Everything that we look at on Instagram or the media looks like everybody's got it all and they're doing it perfectly while wearing 5-inch heels and and looking amazing, and again, that's not real life. So I think we just have to be kinder to ourselves, and I think we need to expose all of the messiness behind it all, and stop trying to make it look so perfect, because the women that are coming up behind us have got this unrealistic expectation of what it's going to all be like, and it's not that easy. So I would try and get rid of the guilt altogether, and just know that you are good enough, and go and read the Good Enough Mother concept, And, you know, if you want to work, enjoy your work while you're there and know that you're doing enough at home. And again, when you're parenting, forget about work and just, you know, and embrace it, and don't feel guilty. But
Absolutely.
I know we all do. I know we all do, but yeah, it's
we
do.
If I can,
yeah,
can I just jump
please.
in on some? Yeah. So I'm very curious about where we learn our habits from and where we learn our belief systems from. So I've done extensive research on that, and from all the clients I've ever worked with, and it's actually quite interesting because I've actually kept statistics on this. I have never in my 15-year career ever come across a person who doesn't have one of the biggest beliefs being I'm not good enough. And that's the foundation of guilt, because if I'm not good enough, then obviously I'll never be at the level that I believe I should be. Now, not being good enough comes from when you were a child. And it's not even that your parents told you you're not good enough. I'm sure everybody's parents did the best they could, but our brain has downloaded that information and created a story. And it's funny because I sometimes say, you know, who are you comparing yourself with? Obviously, if you compare yourself to, you know, I don't know, you're a tennis player and you compare yourself to Federer, maybe you're not good enough, and maybe it will take you a long time until you are good enough to be playing tennis. But, you know, if you compare yourself, it depends on what you compare yourself with. And I think guilt is one of those, like I said, it's one of the lowest. Guilt and shame are the lowest vibrational energies that actually kills you on the inside the fastest. It's the biggest poison that you can have. And I find a lot of people are consumed by guilt, not just mothers, but in general, and a lot, I meet clients a lot, and in this region also, a lot of people that are consumed by guilt. And I think guilt is not something that we can pretend it's not there. I would really say, like, for these people that are consumed by guilt, go and find somebody who can help you come down to the baseline of where is this guilt actually attached. Because when you change the story of where it's attached, actually it will change your life. And I've watched clients get released from guilt, and it's almost like a rebirth of their existence. It's like, what? I don't have to be guilty anymore. I get to be okay. Like, I get to be happy. Really? Like, I get permission. So I think it's really important to look at that, because it's a very, very, very toxic flavor. It really is.
It is. And I think if I could just add to Anna and Jasmine's points, compartmentalize your life. When you're at work, or make your work time, even if you work from home, but switch off and have that family time and be disciplined to have it. That's a really important thing here. And I think, you know what Jasmine said, be kind to yourself, right? If you can't be kind to yourself, who else is going to be kind to you? And it's really important. So ladies, we've had such a terrific discussion over the past sort of 55 minutes. We've engaged in dialogue from the boardroom to the delivery room. Before we wrap up our panel discussion, if I could just ask each of you to share one insight or tip with our audience, and please no more than 20 seconds each. So Hasna, if we could kick off with you, please. You're on mute, Hasna.
So it's difficult to share one tip only, but from me, I'd say be yourself. Remind yourself of who you are, and just be yourself always.
Absolutely. Thank you. Jasmine.
Yeah, I'm not mute, Anna. I'd like to touch on Anna's point about getting to the root of all the negative stuff in your life and going and doing the work on your childhood programs and stories and freeing yourself from all of that, because it is absolutely liberating, and you are so much more than you've been led to believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Go back to the grassroots level. Terrific. Mahima.
Yeah, so I think the best way to empower a woman is by empowering her to take care of her health. So I would say that spread awareness on women's health all around you and encourage women to take care of themselves.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that, Mahima. Thank you. And Anna?
I would definitely say, don't talk about all the things that you're struggling with. Take action every day. Every single day, take massive action, because that's how you move your life forward.
Yeah, for sure. Action. And I would just like to say, you know, a role model for me is Michelle Obama, the former First Lady of the United States. And Michelle Obama said, success isn't about how much money you make. It's about the difference you make in people's lives. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity for us to have this panel discussion today. A virtual round of applause for our 4 panelists. Hasna and Mutawa, thank you. Jasmine, Collin, pleasure to have you with us. Anna Wallenten, some really, really powerful advice there. And Mahima, Bakshi, keep writing your books, because it's authors like you that we need to keep everybody informed. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and enjoy the rest of Wellbeing 360 Thrive 2021.